Hello, my name is Patricia White and I work for Arkansas Support Network. Today we will be talking about skills for effective parent advocacy. This slide presentation is sponsored through our Community Parent Resource Center grant. Today we will talk about being an advocate, which is speaking up for yourself and others. We'll also learn about the skills you need to be an effective advocate, and we'll talk about specific ways that you, as an advocate, can make a difference. Our hope with this training is that you will find one or more skills that you can learn to become a more effective advocate for your child, your parent, your spouse, or anybody that you would like to advocate for. Parents of children with disabilities who participated in a recent focus group expressed a lot of frustration. Some of the thoughts were that they felt like the child's teacher knows more about the child than the parent does, or it feels like the school staff members support the school system and not what the parent thinks is good for their child, or the parent feels spoken down to. The goal of this workshop is to help you realize that you do have power and you can be an effective advocate for your child. We want to help you learn more skills to do this. All of our children may need to be advocated for at different times and places in their lives, but a child with a disability may need more help for a longer period of time. You're not going to find it easy to be an advocate, but it's very important and you can do it. In fact, you are often the only one who can. You don't need to feel powerless or frustrated about your child's issues. You can use the power you have for effective advocacy for your child with a disability. So, what is an advocate? An advocate can be broadly defined as someone who speaks up to make things better. Advocates can speak up for themselves or for others. In fact, each of you has already been an advocate at one time or another. You may not have recognized that you are being an advocate, but you have been. And here are some examples of things that different people do throughout their life that become advocates. Advocacy covers a very broad range of activities that just about everyone in many, many settings does every day. You advocate for yourselves and you advocate for others. As a parent of a child with a disability, you already have to speak up on behalf of your child. You may have spoken to a teacher, daycare worker, doctor, nurse, social worker, other parents, relatives, or even friends. So, why be an advocate? Parents bring their own valuable experience with their child to the table. Parents are the experts about their child. Professionals have knowledge and expertise in a lot of specific areas, but they're only temporary part of your child's life. Professionals pass in and out of your child's life, but you will always be the parent. You are going to have the only long-term connection with this child, and you're going to be the one that will know when something is or is not working. Professionals deal with many children, but you have only your child to think about. A child is best served if parents and professionals work together as a team. However, your child will need you to advocate for him or her. No one cares about your child as much as you do, but you must speak up and make sure that your child becomes as independent, productive, and happy as he or she can be. As a parent, you want your child to belong and participate in the community where he or she lives, and only you, as the advocate and the parent, can make that happen. No one else can. So, what does it mean to be an advocate? An advocate is a supporter, a backer, a believer, and a promoter. And you can be all of those. You undoubtedly already have many skills in these 6 skill areas listed here. What we're wanting to do in this workshop is to expand your skills so that you can become a more effective advocate for your child. We want to give you an overview of these 6 important advocacy skills. So I want you to look at these skills and ask yourself, Which is my strongest area? Which is my weakest? And in what areas could I learn more so that I can be more effective? Advocacy is much more important than playing a game for recreation, but some of the main ideas are the same. Imagine that you're playing a board game or a card game. Games all have rules, and the players need to know what those rules are in order to play the game. But the players also need people skills, such as turn-taking or concentration, or making conversation, or a big one is managing your emotions. Keeping that straight face while you're playing a card game isn't always easy. What is a strategy or plan that you will use to play the game? Of course, the Social Security program or the doctor's office or your child's special ed program are not games, but they have the same process with rules that also require people skills and the skill to resolve a disagreement. Knowing those rules of the game or the process will help you to become an effective advocate for your child. So the first skill we're going to talk about is to understand your child's disability. Why is this important? As I said earlier, you are the one constant in your child's life. You know your child better than anybody else, but you need to understand the disability too. This helps you understand if the services that are being offered are the appropriate services to meet the needs of your child. You need to be able to ask educated and informed questions. And sometimes you need to train and inform the individuals that you're working with about your child's disability so that they have a much better understanding of what's going on and the needs of your child. 2, have high expectations. You know, if you don't have high expectations for your own child, how can you ever expect anybody else to have high expectations for them? We as parents need to be the leaders in working with our child and expecting others to think the same way about our children. Assistive technology. Assistive technology and accommodations are often the key to learning and accessing services. You need to know what type of assistive technology might work well for your child. You are going to be the person that will know what you have used in the past and what works for your child. Are there assistive technology methods or accommodations that help other children who have similar disabilities to your child? There's so many different helpful tools out there. Computers, voice simulators, hearing aids, braille, curb cuts, elevators, captions, note takers, and the one thing that's really hitting the market now are iPads or tablets that quite often children can use in the educational process as well as using them for a communication device. Learn to use the word access. What will it take for my child to access whatever the service or activity is? You know, if someone is deaf, they may need sign language interpreter, or someone who uses a wheelchair may need an elevator or a curb cut. So, as far as finding resources for your child, get to know some other parents that have a child with a similar disability. Join support groups or disability groups. Get on the web and search for blogs or groups. Nowadays there's so many groups that you can access online to get individual information about your child's specific disability. Skill number 2, know the key players. Why is this important? Well, if you want to influence someone to make a change that you think is necessary for your child, you need to know who to talk to. You need to know who actually has the authority to make those decisions or changes. For example, you want to get a paraprofessional, one-on-one paraprofessional for your child. That's not a decision the teacher can make. That needs to come from the special ed supervisor or the principal. You're at the drugstore and you want to make a change or modification to a medication. That's not an issue that the drugstore needs to make. That needs to come from your doctor. So you need to know who it is that makes those decisions. You need to know if there's a hierarchy in the system. Is there someone in the system with a higher rank or with more authority? If one person can't help you, or as we find some cases won't help you, who's the next person that you need to talk to? Who has the higher responsibility that might be able to help you? It's also helpful to know if the staff are public, nonprofit, or private employees, so you can understand what their role is and the rules of the system. To find out about this, ask who funds the agency. Is it funded by the public through taxes? Is it a nonprofit that is probably funded by grants and donations? Is it a private organization funded by fees, donations, or earned income? Also, find out if that organization has a board of directors. If you have some issues, that can always be taken to the board of directors as long as you have followed that hierarchy and gone through everybody else. So to find out how do you find out who this person is? Ask for a list of client, customer, or service user contact information. Look on the internet. That's a great place to find this information. Check a phone book, or check with your local parent center and ask them if they know who you need to contact. Skill number 3, know your rights and responsibilities. This is really important. Knowing who is in charge just isn't enough. Parents need to know the rules of the game. Parents need to participate from a position of knowledge as much as possible. Each agency or service provider has guidelines on how they work. They have procedures, forms, policies, and sometimes laws and regulations. Ask where you can find these and get them in writing if at all possible. Do web searches. There's so much information out there on the web about various different agencies. Learn what you can by reading that agency or service provider's website. Find the funding source. We're back to funding again. There is a direct link between how an agency or service is funded and your rights and responsibilities. If the agency or service provider is funded by the public, they're required to follow certain laws, not just policies. And we're talking about state and or federal laws. Some of the publicly funded systems include public schools, all levels of government, including city and counties, and all government agencies. So there are federal and state laws that govern these different agencies. Get a copy of those laws, such as IDEA. Other agencies and services are nonprofits that are supported by fees, grants, and donations, or private ones that are supported by fees, donations, or earned income. Nonprofit and private agencies and services typically have policies or specific ways of doing their business. Ask to see these policies in writing. You have that right. Ask questions. Ask lots of questions if you want. Agencies and services often have case managers or consumer representatives or patient advocates. Ask to talk to someone about the rights and responsibilities of the people who use this agency and service. And in fact, in quite a few of these things, these agencies, you walk in and the first thing that you get is a list of your rights. Get that ahead of time. Join a group. Where can you learn about more information but from other parents? Talk to your local parent center. Every state has a parent center. Find local support groups. Again, go on the web and find blogs and different group meetings that they have online. Ask questions. If your native language is not English, ask to see the rights and the materials in your language, or ask the agency to provide an interpreter. Sometimes this is required, particularly if the government is funded publicly. They're required by law to provide an interpreter. Often, parents don't feel like partners. In fact, sometimes parents don't even feel like players. But remember the Alice Walker quote, "You do have power, you just need to use it." So understanding the different roles and backgrounds of each of the participants might help you and the staff members work together more effectively. And here are some differences to consider. Staff persons have chosen their careers and have quite often gone to college for that specific career, while most parents didn't even know that they would have a child with a disability. So it kind of comes as a surprise. As I've stated before, and I will say it again, you are involved with your children for life, while most agency and service staff will only be involved with your child for a short amount of time. You're the one who's going to know your child the best. Professionals have formal training and usually receive payment for their role in your child's life. And both you and the staff have the same goal, and that's to provide appropriate services for your child. So I want you to remember that you as a parent have knowledge, and your knowledge and opinions are very valuable. Nobody else knows what you know about your child. And again, you have that in-depth, long-term, daily relationship with your child. Nobody else has that relationship with your child. And as a parent, you can learn new skills on how to advocate and communicate clearly and assertively. Not aggressively, but assertively. And as a parent, you have the power of giving or withholding consent for certain services. So remember, partners who work together have the same overall purpose or goal. They both want a win-win situation, and they make an effort to communicate clearly. Partners who work together have respect for what each partner brings to the relationship, and they understand that everybody has individual roles or jobs and a clear understanding of what those roles and jobs are. Parents and partners who work together have the authority to make changes with permission of the other partners or the other team members. And they have the opportunity for giving feedback to one another. That's the whole point of working together as a team, is you get that feedback and that information from everybody that's part of the team. Everybody brings different skills and information to the team or to the program, and everybody is accountable for the results of the decisions that are made. And everybody needs to use problem-solving strategies as early as possible. Don't focus on who was wrong, because it won't really get you anywhere. Focus on what went wrong and how you as a team can fix it. These concepts can apply to parent and agency or service partnerships. This business of this partnership or team is to provide, again, appropriate services for your child. When the adults work together as partners, your child will benefit. And I've heard this before. It's easy to get good players, but getting them to play together, that's the hard part. Skill number 4, become well organized. Are you one of those people that at tax time you have piles and piles and piles of receipts, and it takes you days, if not weeks, to sort through those receipts so that you can do your taxes? Okay, become organized. You don't want to be one of those parents that needs to go to a school meeting and you don't have the paperwork or the documents that you need. So most agencies do require documents, data, records, etc. So come to the meeting prepared by organizing what you have ahead of time. You never know what you might need in the future. So keep records. Keep records of the various different services or agencies. For example, your school records, might go into a file listed special education. You might keep health records in a different file. You might keep insurance records in a completely different file. In fact, at my house, I have a whole filing cabinet drawer dedicated to my son. Keep all written correspondences, including emails. Keep it if you get it from the school, Social Security, any county services, medical professions, or any other agency that you're dealing with. Keep written correspondences. You never know when you're going to have to refer back to what was stated in a previous correspondence. Keep a list and name and contact numbers for each of the agencies that you deal with. Again, whether it's the school, the Social Security office, your doctors, whomever, keep a list of names and contact numbers, because those are going to come in real handy when all of a sudden something comes up and you need to remember, now, who was it that I talked to and what is their phone number? It cuts down on a lot of time of having to search for that. And when you go to a meeting, bring all pertinent records with you and try to keep them in order by date, because it's going to make it a lot easier for you to find. All right, put it in writing, and I cannot stress this enough. It is always best to get as many things in writing as possible. And again, this is whether it's from the school, Social Security office, from the doctor, whatever. And this, again, includes any letters or emails that you send out to other agencies. Keep a copy of letters and emails that you receive from others. We have a saying in Advocacy Circle, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist, because you can't prove it. Someone may have told you something on the phone or in a hallway conversation, and it may mean nothing because it wasn't documented in writing. If that's the case, if you get stopped in the hall by the principal or something, you might want to, when you get home, write a letter or an email stating something like, I appreciate you talking to me today. Here's what I think you said, and that this is what blank blank what you stated you would do. Unless I hear from you in writing by next week, I am going to assume that this is the way the conversation went, or that you understood the conversation the same as I did. What you're doing is clarifying what was stated. And by clarifying it in writing, then you've got that written documentation that might come in handy down the road if whatever you discussed was not followed through on. It also gives you a way to remember what you stated you would do in whatever that situation was. I don't know about you, but I quite often forget what I'm supposed to do. So by having it in writing, I can remember what I'm supposed to do. Keep a phone log. Oh, I have a spiral notebook next to my phone, and I write down all my phone conversations. Be sure to include the date that you talked to that person, the name of the person you talked to, a phone number of the person that you call, whoever you called, and a summary of what was said or what was decided, and then a brief note of what you discussed. If there was anything specific that you and the other person agreed to, you can always highlight them in your logbook so that you can check on that later, and it will help remind you of what was supposed to be done. And then keep a meeting notebook. Include the date, who was there, and brief notes of what was discussed and decided. Again, if there are specific things that you or others are going to do, highlight them for follow-up. We tell families, document, document, document. I often advise families, if you have to go to a meeting, particularly a school meeting, take someone with you who will just take notes. As a parent, you tend to get involved in what's going on in the conversation, or you tend to get a little emotional. After all, this is our child that we're talking about. So by having somebody there to take notes, they can they can think of this from a separate situation, and they can write notes that will help you further down the road understand what happened in that meeting. Skill number 5, use clear and effective communication, with an emphasis on effective communication. The only person that you have the power to change is yourself. This is about you, not about them. This is about how you are going to use clear and effective communication. The way you talk to others often has a direct relationship to how they interact with you, and perhaps even what services your child is going to receive. If you have a habit of showing strong emotions, ask yourself, will this get what my child needs today as well as tomorrow? The power that we talked about earlier is not the same as aggression. We're talking about assertiveness. If you behave with anger, others will often likely only remember that you were angry. not that you had good points or valid requests. They're only going to remember that angry, nothing else. So here are some tips that can really make a difference when you're advocating for your child. First of all, first and foremost actually, keep your eye on the prize. So what is the prize? The prize is effective service for your child with a disability. The focus should always be on your child and what that child needs, not what you need or what you want. In fact, I quite often suggest that families, if the child themselves is not able to attend the meeting, I suggest that parents take a picture of their child. It helps the team focus on what is important. Listen and ask questions. We so often don't take the time to listen. It only takes a few minutes. Listening to others and asking any questions that you have. Listening gives you the information that you're going to need. Listen to see if the speaker is sharing opinions or facts. There's a difference. A fact will have data or records to back up what is said. Opinions do not, and different people might have different opinions, and so it's going to make it very difficult to agree if all you're dealing with is opinions. Decisions should be based on facts. And whether you agree or not, try to understand what the others are saying. Make sure that you understand what they're saying by reiterating or clarifying what they've said. You could say, I think I heard you say blah, blah, blah. Is that correct? Or tell me more about this so that I'm sure I understand what you're saying. Or could you please explain that to me in another way so I'm sure to understand? Or would you please clarify what you're stating? Sometimes somebody might say, your child is disruptive. Okay, what does that mean? Let's clarify what that means. Ask for ideas. You could say, do you know when my child does this? How often does my child do this? Or what specifically is it that he does? Can you give me more details on what he does? Who does he disrupt? When does he do this? And knowing the answers to these questions can quite often determine what is actually done to resolve the problem. Ask who, what, where, and how questions, but be careful of why questions, especially if it seems like you might be questioning somebody else's motivation, such as, why did you do that? Instead, ask, why is my son occurring that behavior? Why is my son sitting in this specific place in the classroom? Why is my son taking this medication? Those are much more appropriate questions. Focus on the needs of the child, not the solution that you want. Please keep an emphasis on what your child needs, not simply on a surface you may want for your child. In fact, as I stated in the previous slide, use data or facts instead of opinions to support what you think your child needs. And please expect the professionals to use data too. If you or the professionals do state an opinion, make sure everybody in the meeting knows that it is an opinion and not a fact. So what you want to do is problem solve together to find solutions for the problem. So to do that, you want to first of all describe what the problem is clearly. And this is where you can use your data or facts to back up what the problem is. If it's an issue with a particular person at school, make sure you have, some notes from that person. If it's a behavior that your child is exhibiting, make sure that you've got some descriptors. Where did this behavior happen? What happened? Who does it affect? When does it happen? How often does this problem occur? So describe it clearly and make sure everybody understands what the problem is. Encourage input from other members of the team, because they may be seeing things from a different perspective. You always want to hear from all sides of the situation, because it may just be a problem of lack of communication or breakdown in communication. Brainstorm about what type of ideas or solutions you can come up with. Don't judge the ideas or solutions, because you want to hear what everybody's suggestions are first. Then you can go through and pick out what the team as a whole decides might be the best solution to the problem. So choose a solution that everybody agrees with. Understand that there are going to be times that not all of the parties are going to agree. So you agree to disagree, and we're going to discuss that in a later slide. Once you've decided on the solution, develop a plan. Make sure everybody understands who is responsible for what action and when it will be done. And make sure that this plan is in writing, because if it's not written down, it didn't happen. Create a timeline. Timelines are going to be very important so that everybody knows that they have to follow through on their part of the plan by a specific time. And look at criteria for evaluating the success of the solution. You can come up with solutions to ideas, but if you don't understand how to evaluate the success of it, you might not know if the plan is working. And then follow up to make sure that the plan is implemented. Go back and double check with the people that are part of following through on the plan to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing at the time or by the time that they're supposed to be doing it. And you can do this in a very friendly attitude. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, I was just checking to see if you have had a chance to follow through or follow up on whatever the responsibility is. You can do it in a very positive manner. On our last slide about using clear and effective communication, I want to encourage you to speak clearly. Be as clear and direct as possible so that everyone in the meeting will understand what you have to say. So you give examples of what your issue is. Instead of saying, my daughter always has a stomach ache, you might be a little bit more specific and say, my daughter has a stomach ache every afternoon when she gets home from school. That gives everybody a clearer picture of exactly what's going on. Describe why something will help. Don't just say, I want this because, I want this for my daughter. Explain why you might want that. Explain how something that you're requesting will help. Again, go back to that data that we talked about earlier. If you say, my child needs paraprofessional support, explain why and how you feel your child will benefit from paraprofessional support. If you don't have the facts or anything to back you up, the school's not going to, or whoever you're dealing with, is not going to want to follow through on this because there's no reason for that particular support. Try to avoid making people defensive. You all know what it's like. When somebody's yelling at you, you tend to shut down and you stop listening. So don't criticize. When you criticize, defensiveness increases and listening decreases. You build that wall up and nobody will listen to you. So instead of criticizing, that's where you state, here's the problem that we're facing. Let's discuss solutions, rather than, well, you didn't, blah, 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 blah. Make it factual. Give positive feedback whenever you can. If you see something that's going well, if you see a situation that's working for your child, let them know. Everybody appreciates positive feedback, and you become the parent that sees both sides of the picture. Yes, there are some problems that are going on, but at the same time, here are some really good things that I, as a parent, also see. Let's work together to make this a successful, whatever it is you're working on. Turn negatives into positives if at all possible. This allows you to take a negative comment made about your child and turn it into a positive comment. For example, somebody says, he's always fighting. Well, that's kind of a negative comment. You could say, well, it looks like my child needs to learn social skills. What are some things that we can do to make this happen? So you're turning the negative comment into a positive request for supports. So rephrase that negative comment, as I said, into a request for supports and services. And then, of course, at the end of every meeting, summarize what you have said and what everybody else has said. Summarize what the outcomes of that meeting were. Ask if you're understanding everything. Go through the list of things that various different people have said they've done. Highlight those things. Bring them up. Make sure everybody knows what their responsibilities are. Reiterate that timeline that you've set up for resolving whatever the issue is. And hopefully, and always, as I've said earlier, document things that are going on. Document things that are said, and specifically document the responsibilities that people are taking on so that you can check back with them to find out what's going on. Clarify that you understand and that everybody else in the meeting understands what their responsibilities are. On this slide, I just want to emphasize some of the things that we've already gone over with on previous slides. So the number one thing to keep in mind is to focus on your goal. What is your goal? The goal is not what you want. The goal is what does your child or whomever it is that you're advocating for need. Not what you want, but what does that individual need. Show respect towards others and expect them to show respect towards you. Manage your emotions. It's tough to do, but do the best you can. If you do feel the need to step out of the room for a minute, feel free. But go in there and do your best to manage your emotions. Ask questions. You don't know if you don't ask a question. It doesn't show any sort of irresponsibility. So ask questions. Find the answers. As I said on the last slide, rephrase for clarification. Make sure you and everybody else understands what the meeting was about. And then last but not least, something that we haven't mentioned is at the end of the meeting, always thank all the participants for attending the meeting. Whether it was an unpleasant meeting or not, they took the time out of their day to be present, to hear what you have to say. The best thing you can do is to appreciate the time that they spent listening. As we stated before, there's a saying in advocacy circles, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. Letters and emails can be sent for a variety of reasons, such as making a request, asking for clarification, or clarifying something that you said, asking for a decision, documenting a verbal discussion, and absolutely send something saying thank you for having this meeting with me. So use this checklist on the slide when you write a letter or email to help you remember these particular important points. Number one, be sure that whatever you're sending is sent to the person that can make change. You can always CC an email to other people, but make sure that it's going to somebody who can make a change. If you want a policy change, sending something to the janitor isn't going to get you anywhere except just a bunch of flotsam and jetsam floating around. Make sure you're going to the person who can make a change. Be sure to date and sign all communication. Otherwise, they don't know who it's coming from or what date it was sent on. I know you can't sign email, but make sure that your name is printed on the email. Keep it short and brief. Don't go on and on and on about a subject. Keep it short, keep it to the point, and keep emotion out of it. Just the facts. So it needs to be shorter than one page and just a few issues. If you're requesting a deadline, make sure that you request, or if you're requesting a reply, make sure you set a deadline. I would like a reply back by such and such a date, or please respond by blah, 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 something like that. Put your contact information on there. I have gotten voicemails on my phone message. Hi, this is Sherry. Give me a call. And I have no way to call them back. Of course, today with caller ID, it makes it a little bit easier. Remember the chain of command. Always start with the person that you're directly working with. Don't go straight from them to the top. Work through the chain of command, because if you go straight to the top, then the people in the middle are left out, and those might be the people that can make the change happen, and now you've reported them on a situation that they didn't even know existed in the first place. And as always, you see it's highlighted on here, keep a copy for yourself. Again, if it's not in writing or if you don't have a copy of it, it didn't happen. Always keep a copy that you can use as proof. What do you do when you disagree? When parents and agencies disagree, there are things that you can do or say that will help the disagreement be solved more quickly and amicably, no matter what process is used. You can disagree without being disagreeable. You can do that by expressing that you want to continue to work together with the agency because it's going to benefit your child. Keeping in mind what is the outcome that you want. You want supports and services for your child. Keep that in mind. You do not want this agreement or disagreement to interfere with the benefits or the services for your child. Sometimes you might be partly responsible for the disagreement. It may be that you misunderstood what somebody said, or there was a problem with communication. Accept responsibility for your part in any disagreement, and feel comfortable apologizing if it's appropriate. It makes you human, and people are much more willing to work with you if you accept responsibility for an error. You are an advocate for your child only. The professionals that you're disagreeing with work for an agency. They not only answer to you, but they also have to answer to their agency. And sometimes it's not the person you're disagreeing with at all. It's the agency and the agency's policies. So remember, separate the person from the problem. Sometimes also we have a dislike of some of the people that we're working with, but yet that individual is there to help our child. And again, separate the person from the problem. The problem may be something completely different. Keep in mind what the problem is, and let's work towards solving the problem, and keep personalities out of it. Each person involved in this disagreement brings different information, values, priorities, etc. to the table. No one has all the answers. So try to work together using everyone's input to solve the problem. Help people make sure that the facts are accurate so that the decisions are accurate. Again, that goes back to listening and clarifying and using the facts to make sure that the decision everybody comes up to is the best decision possible. And sometimes you have to compromise. Not everything is worth disagreeing about. Choose your battles. You cannot fight everything at one time. Be aware that those you deal with are just going to become weary and wary if you fight everything that comes across the table. Your child will not benefit when adults are worn out by disagreement, because we're going to become depressed and it's going to be difficult for anybody to come to an agreement. So again, choose your battles. Stick with those disagreements that really affect the quality of service for your child. Skill number 6 is know how to resolve disagreements. Why is this important? As a parent, you might disagree or agree with the decisions made by an agency, school, or service provider. If you look back at skill number 3, you'll be reminded that knowing who is in charge is not enough. Parents need to know the rules of the game, including how disagreements are settled with a specific agency, school, or service provider. Each agency has formal or informal guidelines on how it works. Each one has procedures, forms, policies, and sometimes laws and regulations. Ask if the agency has a dispute resolution procedure, and ask where you can find it in writing. That way you can study the dispute resolution procedure and become more familiar with it so that when you approach the agency, you again have the facts in writing on what you need to know. There are many ways to resolve disagreements. The best is, of course, usually using the informal means. Start your efforts at the level closest to the problem. Talk to the people, such as the teacher, case manager, or service provider, about your differences and be clear about why you do or do not agree. Again, this goes back to communication, effective communication. You need to make sure that they understand what you're saying and that you understand what they're saying. And it may, again, just be a bad communication. Sometimes a compromise or a trial solution might work. And you could say, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's give it a try. Set a date at which time you're going to check back to find out if it's working. And again, make sure you understand what the standards are so that you'll know whether or not it's working. Again, know how to resolve disagreements. Sometimes more formal means are necessary to try to clear up disagreements. Some of the options are mediation, complaints, and appeals. Agencies and service providers, specifically schools, sometimes provide mediation where the parties who disagree meet with a neutral mediator. The parties, not the mediator, make the final decision. The mediator just guides the discussion so that all sides and options can be heard. Some agencies and service providers have formal means of filing a grievance or a complaint, and some agencies and service providers have a written process for filing an appeal of a decision made by the agency or provider. All government agencies must have an appeals process. And, by the way, insurance companies also have an appeals process if a claim or procedure is denied. Well, what if it doesn't work? Okay, why bother to file an appeal or a complaint if it didn't work before? Well, you've heard the saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. This simply means that those who speak up and are persistent often get the services their child or family needs. Even if we hear no today, we may hear yes tomorrow. How can we find out more? As we stated in a previous slide, search the website. Look for their website. See what you can find on the agency's or services website. Check their funding. Again, like I stated earlier, there is a direct link between how an agency or service is funded and your rights and responsibilities, including resolving differences. Agencies that are funded through public taxes, such as schools and government agencies, are required to follow certain laws. Other agencies and nonprofit agencies have policies and procedures on how to resolve differences. So simply ask to see what those policies are and ask for them in writing. They're required to provide those policies to you. Join a group. Talk to other parents that have gone through or may be going through the situation that you're going through. Ask them how they resolve their differences. And, do a little bit of research. Take a class if you need to. Read a book. Do some online searching on how or what are the various different ways that you can resolve differences. Ask different people who are familiar with the agencies. Ask the board of directors of the agencies. Talk to somebody about rights and responsibilities. Go to some of the consumers that are using those things, other parents, various different things like that. The only person you can change is you. No matter how much you wish the other person would learn some of these skills, you cannot force it to happen. But you do have the power to change and grow yourself. As the saying goes, every journey begins with one step. As you work on your own skills, you will find yourself becoming more confident and effective. And through this process, you can make a great difference in the life of your child with a disability. If you want any more information, please contact us. We are the Northwest Arkansas Community Parent Resource Center, a program through Arkansas Support Network. Our contact information is on the slide. Thank you.